Once again, for those interested in attending the panel on industrial decarbonization, you are here, you are in the right room. This is also streamed online. And for those of you that are interested in the Green Cities panel, you need to find and to go to Yorga room. And that session will be recorded and posted tomorrow afternoon online. So without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce the moderator for this session. Tamara Lagurashvilli, Director for Central and Eastern Europe Clean Air Task Force. Tamara, the floor is yours.
Good job. 4. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I really admire all of your bravery who are still here, and we hope to have an engaging panel about industrial decarbonization. I think right now we are really in a very interesting time globally. We are facing the major geopolitical shifts. We are also entering the era of the disrupted supply chains, but we are also seeing increased interest in rebuilding the supply chains by reinvigorated economic partnerships across the globe. And we also see the vertical integration of the supply chain by the companies. On the other hand, we also are entering and are also already witnessing a year of the super elections where we have dozens of elections really across the globe. We just finished the European Parliament elections, decisions of which are still trickling down and will shape our work in the coming months and years. We are obviously having high anticipation for the US elections, and obviously Ukrainian brave soldiers are still continuing to fight for their freedom and territorial integrity, but also all of our freedom. So there is a lot of volatility and lots of uncertainty in the world, and companies and governments really have to navigate that. So it is very important in all this uncertainty to keep certain things really high on the agenda. Retaining the industrial base and economic prosperity and making sure the decisions are really people-centric and they are delivering the benefits to the community, and we are engaging with the communities and understanding what they need and how we can really help them through the transition so the transition happens for them rather than to them. So to really unlock this very important conversation about industrial decarbonization, retaining the industrial competitiveness, but also how the communities can be empowered so that they can co-create the industrial strategies with the governments, with the private companies. Today we have a stellar panel, so let me introduce them. Kamil, Šaško, the First State Secretary of Ministry of Economy of Slovak Republic. We have Virgil-Daniel Popescu, former Energy Minister of Romania and member of the European Parliament. And we have Sebastian Enache, Head of Mergers and Acquisitions at Monsson. We also have one more panelist, which we hope that we will be joining very shortly. So, State Secretary, let's start with Slovakia. I think what might not be really known, but maybe it is known already in the audience, to unpack kind of a success story of Slovakia. You are one of those few countries which actually exceeded the expectation when it comes to the coal phase-out. Your expected timeline for coal phase-out was 2030, but you have done it much earlier, actually 6 years earlier than the timeline. You shut down the last coal power plants this March, right? And then obviously there is nuclear in the mix. So right now your electricity mix, which is mostly comprised of the renewables and the nuclear energy, is one of the cleanest, if not the cleanest, in the European Union. Could you talk a little bit about how did you get to this transition and what kind of community engagement did it take to make sure that you had public support and societal buy-in for this energy transition journey?
Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation to speak here. And I think it's excellent job from the organizers to put such a platform together to share perhaps also the best practices among friends and partners within this forum. Indeed, we have been able to close the 2 last coal mines within the last 6 to 8 months. In fact, personally, I was closing them both, and we consider it a great success, because truly the energy production in Slovakia is now almost fully carbon-free. This is mainly thanks to the nuclear energy, and we have big plans also towards the future. We just opened the 3rd unit at the nuclear power plant. We will open another one next year, and we already declared that we will be building a brand new one on the horizon of the next 15 years. So we said very clearly what our expectations toward the future in terms of the production of the energy is. And this is first fundamental answer to your question, is the predictability. To give the right symbol, to right signals, and it's all about the problem that we in Slovakia, but I think also on the general fora we face, and I call it the continuity of discontinuity. You know, with each new government, each new leadership, it often happens that new priorities are set, new goals, new ambitions, new milestones. And usually, in particular with activities like decarbonization, these are long-term agendas, and we as a society need to make sure that we are on one boat and we accept the road that we need to take. Now, it also comes, of course, with many hurdles, which I will be hopefully able to talk about. For example, in the regions, the coal regions, the fundamental question is how to make sure that the transformation is not only green and not only digital, but also social, because the social implications on the people that for decades were working, for example, in a coal mine, it's fundamental so that they see the future, they accept it. So we spend a lot of attention in the government to make sure that we find proper programs for their requalification, so they find new jobs with new and more added value with industries or within the segments that will actually help to contribute to the decarbonization goals of the country as a whole. So, for example, the 2 coal plants or two coal areas, one will be used, for example, for the future use of the hydrogen, because the infrastructure is there, and then the second location we are currently studying in cooperation with international partners, and we are thinking of building the new small modular reactors there, or the photovoltaics. So because the infrastructure is there, we want to use it from the energy perspective to make sure that the new sources which will be needed will be indeed green and will contribute to the decarbonization of the sectors that are present in those regions.
Thank you, State Secretary. If I may have just a very short follow-up question. When you talk about the transition, coal to hydrogen, we also hear coal to SMRs. There is a multiple variations of how the coal regions can be repurposed. And in Central and Eastern Europe, where we have the highest numbers of the just transition regions, so this is a common issue and challenge, obviously with the different timelines across the countries. But are you working together with the countries in the region to share some of the best practice and lessons learned? Because a little bit later, Sebastian and Enache will bring some of the success stories of how it is being done in Romania. And I think one of the values and virtues of the conference like PTEC is to foster this kind of cross-country collaboration, so we don't have to reinvent the wheel every time we do this. So if you could talk about...
Absolutely. If I stay only within the energy sector, I think that's what is the core principle of functioning of the European Union and beyond, to share the best practices, to cooperate with neighbors, but not only neighbors. We have many initiatives within our region with all our neighbors, with Poland in the use of, for example, geothermal or the gas, with Czech Republic, obviously, with Hungary, and also with Austria. But even more importantly, we are trying utmost to put into all our activities also our friends in Ukraine, because their energy situation is rather extremely difficult, and it's coming worse and worse every day. So we are working on many cross-border projects and trying to identify ways how to help them. So yes, these decarbonization climate projects cannot be done within one country, particularly, for example, small country like Slovakia, but we need to cooperate also on a regional basis. And this cooperation, for example, when we talk about the future of the transition of the gas, you know that the contract between Russia and Ukraine is about to end by the end of this year, and any alternative, for example, for Slovakia, is really reliant on cooperation with our partners. For example, including with Romania when we are talking about the South Stream and the South Corridor. So yes, we need to cooperate, and that's what it's all about.
Thank you, State Secretary. Minister Popescu, next to you, one of the things that State Secretary has mentioned, a very interesting term, discontinuity of continuity. Also understanding continuity of discontinuity. Actually overcoming the political short-termism and understanding how we can develop the policies that can be more enduring and durable, right? So I think Romania offers another very important test case in the region where you have diversified the solutions portfolio quite a bit. And earlier on the first or second panel, the Minister of Energy, your colleague from Moldova, was talking about the cost of having no options, especially in the wake of Russia's war in Ukraine. Romania serves as a good example of diversifying the solutions portfolio. Apart from the renewables, this year also the new law on the offshore wind has been adopted, obviously on nuclear, Cernavoda 1, and hopefully the other units will be also coming online. The SMR, as Minister Burduja has mentioned, is still going further. If you could reflect about how did the diversity of the technological portfolio came with the energy transition during your period, and maybe talk a little bit about these durable policies that are very important to make sure that once certain government and certain politician goes away, that the policies still don't go away, but they really are in place to ensure the investor confidence.
First of all, thank you very much for inviting me in this panel. I hope that decarbonization will lower the temperature in this room because it's too hot. Yes, we have to start 4 years ago. It wasn't so easy 4 years ago. Now it looks not easy, but it looks better. Let's start 4 years ago when we had the same mix, but we had some frozen legal framework. We had some frozen projects. We had the nuclear project frozen with Chinese. So we unfrozen them, and then we put it on the right track with our American partners and European partners. So now we can talk about units 3 and 4 with this consortium of partners. We can talk about SMRs, but not only about SMRs, we can talk about Romania as a regional hub of SMRs, of technology, and also of know-how and teaching students. If you know, Romania has the first SMR simulator in the region, so we at the Polytechnical University of Bucharest, and now we are very proud of this, that together with our American friends we did that, and we can cooperate with all the countries in the region in this direction. Also we have coal, but we also managed to have a phase out of coal. We said 2030, 2032. It's not easy to do it quickly. We managed to have a restructuring plan to the biggest company of producing energy of coal. It's a Complexul Energetic Oltenia with a PPP, with encouraging Complexul Energetic Oltenia to have private partners in order to build gas facility of production of energy and also to have renewables. After this restructuring plan, together with private partners, Complexul Energetic Oltenia will have 1.3 gigawatts of gas and electricity produced by gas and 700 megawatts produced by renewables. But we also have our own resources. That's why I said it's easier for us, because we rely on our own resources of gas, and we want to use gas, and we are committed to use gas as a transition fuel in order to reach net zero in 2050. Of course, renewables is a major pillar in our energy mix. We have resilience plan, we have modernization plan, we have modernization fund, we have a lot, billions of euro from European Union to invest in the renewables, wind and solar, and also storage. Give you an example, on resilience plan we have project of 1.8 gigawatts on solar and wind, and 1.8 gigawatts of storage. But we also recently, my colleague Sebastian finished the contract for difference framework, and we will start also CFD on Romanian market. So we have nuclear, we have nuclear, we have gas as a transition fuel, and on top of that we have renewables and storage capacity. And now we develop what we have: underground geothermal resources. The first memorandum will be signed, I think, today or tomorrow. Elcen, the company that delivers heat to Bucharest, will sign with an American company memorandum of developing geothermal energy in heating Bucharest. It wasn't easy, but step by step we did it, and I am very glad and I am very pleased to see that my colleague is continuing all the projects that we started and even develop more in the same direction. So we can say that government after government, beginning with end of 2019, the energy policy of Romania is continuing and is dealing with the same objective, net zero and independence of Romania in the field of energy and supplying of gas. We have gas in the Black Sea. We'll extract those gas, and of course we cannot consume all the gas in Romania, so we'll be a reliable supplier for Moldova and from the region here in this region.
Minister Popescu, thank you so much. Another aspect, because you mentioned obviously that EU support has been critical as well to make sure that the projects go through. You have mentioned the modernization fund, the cohesion fund. So could you speak a little bit about, in your experience, what has been the key financial challenges that you have faced and how you have been able to overcome them with the EU funding, but also matching with the national funding and mobilizing the private capital?
Yes, we have EU funds, but for example, in the state aid that we need to phase out coal, we need national funds. We only need European Union approval, but we have to deal with a lot of budgetary constraints in order to resolve those phase out of coal. But we managed to do it because we took also in consideration that if we look on medium and long term, the cost of having the coal in surviving, let's say like this, is more than giving the state aid and restructuring the coal and phase out of the coal. And also we have European funds at our disposal, Just Transition Fund, in order to find solution for those people that work in the coal region in order to find them a future. So we have national funds, European funds, we put together also with private partners, with syndicates, with union, with private companies in order to with local authorities in order to achieve the objective of decarbonization and also have an affordable cost of electricity and energy, and also to have a future for those people that are working there and are living there and have to live there and work there.
Would you like to respond?
Oh, I think that this is one of the fundamental questions that we need to address. As former minister said very correctly, we have several tools, financing tools, but often if we are here to discuss, for example, the national perspectives, we had a bit of an issue how to streamline the finances, because it should not happen that we have now a recovery resilient plan, we have the structural funds, we have the modernization fund, then we have some national sources and perhaps some PPP projects, etc. And we need to make sure, or at least we in Slovakia are trying to make sure that we do not try to finance all type of projects from different sources. So, for example, what I mean, we have the modernization fund, quite a lot of money there, but we try to streamline it only maybe to 2 or 3 priorities. So we use modernization funds mainly to address the central heating in the cities, and more to develop, to modernize, and to build a new electricity transport system in Slovakia, right? So so this is for the modernization fund. Then we try to use the structural funds mainly to use it for the energy efficiency, especially in terms of the buildings, because, for example, in Slovakia, this is the biggest challenge in terms of the decarbonization. And we can go financial tool by financial tool, but it's very important to really understand what they are for and to try to streamline the projects, because without that, the effectivity and the allocation effectivity is not always reached, and this is the fundamental task for all of us, because the need for investment into decarbonization is often 10 times, 100 times more than the sources that we actually have. So we need to be smart and together really communicate how to use it most efficiently.
Thank you so much, State Secretary. Streamlining finances, tapping into existing funds, but creating also regulatory environment which will be conducive to attracting the private capital. One very important aspect that we will be touching right now in a second is obviously community engagement when it comes to reskilling and upskilling the workers, creating the jobs of the future and making sure that nobody is really left behind in the transition process. Sebastian, could you talk a little bit about some of the fascinating projects that Monsson is doing, what you have mentioned as changing the minds and hearts of the people, and how you have been actually doing that hands-on in Romania?
Yeah, hello everybody. Well, thank you very much for the invitation, first of all. Yes, we're from the private sector. We're trying to navigate between the policies and the people around the businesses. And of course, energy transition, it's having a fair mix in the energy system. And this is why renewables are quite young. Yeah, we are now facing, in the last 10 years, a growth in the renewables, but also in the jobs in renewables. Yeah, right now in Romania, when we first started, probably we had 100 people involved in renewables per se, but now I think more than 50,000 people work directly in renewables. Yeah, and until 3 years ago, this job wasn't even in the job registry. So we need to make sure that when introducing renewables into the energy mix, we do it correctly, both from the legislative part, and this is what the government is doing and supporting, of course, but also the technical aspect is bringing more experts and more people and making sure that phasing out of coal is in parallel with growing renewables, but in the coal industry we have a lot of specialists, a lot of people that are still young, that are still involved, that still want to work. And at the level of the associations, we saw the need of bringing, and renewables will grow in Romania and in Europe in the next years 3 times more, yeah, and we need people, yeah. So we wanted to go where people will lose their jobs or where coal mines will be phased out. And what we did was focusing on one of the coal regions in transition, Jiu Valley, and said, okay, we have there 20,000 miners that will lose their job in the next years, yeah. And we tried to implement a project that would take the people that want to have a new career, train them, and hire them in renewables. And this is what we have been doing in the last 5 years, I think. And you said something very important. You cannot just go into the mines, yeah, and say, okay, we offer you a job, yeah, because in the beginning, all the miners said they're closing the mines because of you, renewables, yeah, and if they would found out that I was working in renewables, I was not very loved in that area. People were throwing rocks. What I can say is that now, after the programs that we've implemented, they're inviting me for beers, yeah, and I think changing hearts and minds and making them understand that they can have a better future, they can have a longer future, and they can have a reliable job in renewables was one of the goals that we had to do. So at the level of the association and also the private companies in the sector, initiated several reskilling and upskilling programs. I can give you 2 examples. One example is together with OMV Petrom and Complexul Energetic Oltenia, the largest employer of miners. We've set up a training center, and right now we're reskilling miners from Complexul Energetic Oltenia, and OMV Petrom is hiring them in their renewable energy plants, the PV plants that they will build. Yeah? So this is a clear statement that renewables could be part of the solution, yeah, of the energy transition, because what we're doing now is not just building, but also operating, and these power plants will be operating for the next 30, 50 years. Yeah? So we're closing the circle by training them and hiring them into renewable energy companies. This is one of the examples, and we've been trying to work at industry level to integrate the local community near the investments that we're doing. This is very important, yeah, because the renewable plants are placed all over Romania from the PV point of view, yeah, from the photovoltaic plants. So we have the opportunity to hire from the local community as much people as possible during both construction and operation. And this is an ongoing plan. We recently got some additional funds that would allow us to train 3,000 more people towards renewables for reskilling purposes only. And I think aside of the growing of the capacity that is now coming, yeah, and the energy mix will have a higher renewable energy in it, we will be able to say that between 2020 and 2035, yeah, 50,000 jobs would have been created to renewables or transition from coal to renewables. And I think this is one step further for the energy transition.
Sebastian, thank you so much. And while I have you here, maybe as we mentioned a little bit earlier, the need for the cross-regional collaboration so that we don't really spend a lot of energy on, getting to the scratch and reinventing the wheel, but rather try to cross-pollinate the learning, so to say. what are some of the key barriers or maybe the opportunities that you see of taking this approach, which seems to be very well calculated, of understanding what the people want and what kind of added value can the company offer them rather than already telling them this is your future and deal with it, right? Do you have any prospects of internationalizing your work?
What I can say is that energy transition is local, so it needs to be adapted locally. Yeah, and energy transition doesn't mean only to hire coal miners to renewables. Yeah, you can be a bus driver. You can have any type of job and move towards a new energy. Yeah, heat pumps, gas, everything. It's energy transition jobs. Yeah. So first, from our point of view as an initiative, the European Union, actually the European Commission, helped us, and now we're working. There is a project called Project Blueprint, and I'm actually proud to say that Romania is at the forefront of exporting renewable energy know-how to European Union, because right now we were hired by the European Commission to write the green energy jobs curricula, and there is the need to align the curricula towards the same industry, to have a standardized industry all over Europe. And by this mean, it will allow all the schools, universities, and colleges to be able to implement green energy trainings at the same level of knowledge all over Europe. And at the level of the Wind Europe and Solar Power Europe, the associations for renewable energies, we are now trying to work with the local organizations to implement such reskilling and upskilling programs, yeah, to build reskilling and upskilling training infrastructure, yeah, because there is also the problem that there is a practical training. It's not only theoretical training, and the training infrastructure is not put in place. I can give you an example that in Romania right now, we've built 5 training centers, and we're building 5 more in the next 3 years, just to make sure that every 1,000 megawatt of renewable energy has a training center around their area. So people can move faster, can go faster, can learn faster, and then can be integrated easier towards renewables. And so on one side, we are trying to take our approach, Renew Acad, at European level and try to deploy a standardized curricula for learning in the European Union. Then we're trying to work with the local associations and to create training infrastructure so that more people could be trained and could go to renewables. These people can have any type of job because reskilling and upskilling means transition.
Thank you so much. Cannot wait where the Monsson and the Renew Acad really goes within the next few years. State Secretary, going back to you and really starting to dig a little bit deeper in the industrial decarbonization scope, and what are some of the challenges, and also like what are some of the prospects of community engagement? Automotive industry is obviously the most important and critical component of Slovakia's industry. It's the biggest component of the Slovakia's GDP, but it also not shielded from the transformation. Automotive industry is also undergoing through a major transformation. We have a 2035 goal for the ban on the combustion engines. So could you reflect a little bit, how does it look like when a critical element of the country's industry is going through the transformation? What has been your observation, some of the success stories and challenges on the way?
I will react immediately, but I just want to come back to what the colleague from Monsson was saying. And I think that it's very important if we want the, let's say, the decarbonization in general to be a success story, because the professionals, as you saw, they know what they are doing. They know what they need to do, and they just need, and that's the main role, let's say, of the public sector, of the politicians and the media and everyone, to make sure that the regular citizens, every one of us, has in a way a skin in a game, that they understand what is happening, they understand the process, they understand why we are doing so, because, and that's often where we are not doing the best job possible. So in terms of to initiate the dialogue immediately when the plans are being created, to make it inclusive, to put as many stakeholders as possible, not only to deal with the 2 or 3 biggest ones and then let the other ones to deal with that. So it's very important to make sure that the communication and education, not only requalification, but education and communicating with the general public, it's extremely important. Now, coming back to your question in terms of the key challenges for the decarbonization, I would summarize them maybe in 4 main areas, or at least that's what's valid in Slovakia. First is the technological challenges coming, and I think that we have that in common also with Romania, the legacy of the infrastructure, the modernization depth of the infrastructure, and when we want to make sure that this infrastructure works more energy efficient, this requires advanced technologies that are often requiring substantial investment. So we come back to the need for the money. So then the second one is the economic challenges, because this often comes with the high cost of the transition, and leading to that is the competitive pressures, right? To how to make sure that when we invest on one hand, our businesses stay competitive on the global scale. This is in particularly valid for small and medium enterprises, which in case of Slovakia is almost 99%. And they often do not have these sources, but the decarbonization is mostly going to be successful if also these small businesses are able to really put in place these initiatives. And the same is with the digitalization. Then the third one are obviously the regulatory challenges, the often changing and very complex EU and national legislation, and this is always deemed as a regulatory burden, regulatory obstacles to achieve that. And definitely there is also the social challenges coming from the workforce transition or the public acceptance. Very concretely, when you ask about how the automotive sector, which in case of Slovakia, in case you didn't know, Slovakia is the biggest per capita car producer in the world, and it's also very energy demanding. So we are in ever or never-ending dialogue with the automotive sector, because the rules and the ambitions are very demanding, right? And the state or the government cannot really solve it on its own. So we really need that we listen to each other and we understand what they are doing and what we are doing, and so that we find the symbiosis. So, for example, the automotive sector on their own initiatives, and they have the sources, they just need, for example, the government just to make sure that the permits are there and no obstacles are put in place. So, for example, they are dealing with major solar installation, not only on the roof of the factories, but also on the parking lots, etc. Coming or linked to that, and that's where we try to focus also some support from the structural funds, is the battery storage system, because they need to store this renewable energy somewhere, and this is always quite costly. Obviously, and we are in a process of the transformation of the automotive sector in general. We have a brand new action plan. We are finalizing that these days in cooperation with the automotive sector, because the electricity or the energy needs that for example, we have the fifth car producer, Volvo, coming to east part of Slovakia, and their condition is that they want to use only green energy, which is quite demanding. Then On top of that, we have all this electromobility movement. We want everyone to have their own, pretty much the charging station and the heat pump and the own solar on the roof. So this is extremely challenging and very much linked to that. And I think that is going to be a big topic also for our colleagues in Brussels, both in Parliament and in the Commission, is how we make sure that we have enough sources, natural sources, raw materials, because given what is happening in Ukraine, indeed we all are talking about how to make sure that we get rid of the reliance on one source. We know what I'm talking about, but linked to that is the over-reliance on the other, let's say, part of the world which holds the most of the crucial sources that we do not have in Europe, but that are crucial to make sure that we are able to reach our, for example, climate and decarbonization goals. So this is a very complex agenda, but I think that the people in Brussels, in cooperation with national politics, will be able to solve that in cooperation.
Thank you very much, State Secretary, for laying out as well the regulatory, technical, economic challenges on the way. Minister Popescu, if you would like to first reflect on some of the challenges that State Secretary mentioned in terms of critical raw materials. Otherwise, I think it would be very interesting to see it in the perspective of what's going to be the European Commission's priorities for the next 5 years. As I mentioned in the beginning, it's kind of a super year for the elections. We finished a couple of national elections. We are still having pending elections, including the US, which we are looking forward with the anticipation. Sebastian, you're smiling about that, but it's definitely one of the most highly anticipated election. In her priorities, the newly re-elected President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, has emphasized that a clean industrial deal is going to be one of the key priorities going forward, something that will be unfolded also in the first 100 days. Could you talk a little bit about what's your expectation and what are some of the key components to make sure this clean industrial deal actually delivers on the promises? And how do you see Romania's role in this process?
Thank you. What I see now, I see that the new project of the new European Commission, this new clean technology industry, will come with a lot of challenges. First of all is the critical materials supply chain. Europe is not relying on their own critical materials, so we have to find them in other places. And after the COVID crisis and after the energetic crisis, I think we have to look for raw materials on our friends or on our own. And till now, we are relying on raw materials from China, from other countries, hopefully not from Russia. And we have to develop a supply chain clearly with our allies. So I think one of the major challenges is to find a safely and supply chain of raw materials that we needed in this clean technology act that Madam Ursula von der Leyen proposed us in the European Parliament from the new European Commission mandate. Second, it's clear that we have to maintain our objective of net zero in 2050. So we have to decarbonize again the industry, the energetic system. So we'll face major challenges. Not all of countries are on the same side. Not all of the countries consider that nuclear energy is very important for decarbonization. I say that decarbonization without nuclear couldn't be possible, is not possible. We are 10 like-minded states that sustains it, but there are 27 states in European Union, so we are not on the same side with this. We having, let's say, fights with other countries that don't like the nuclear. So it's not easy to obtain this. We said that renewables and storage is not the only way. We have to have a wide range energy production, like nuclear. And Romania has to have a role in this clean technology development. And I think his position, his local position here, it's one major advantage. I think European funds that we have it in order to develop companies and to develop production of clean technology. There are another advantage. I think know-how that we have it in the nuclear energy field. It's another advantage. I think that research and development at university with strong traditions that we have it, it's another advantage. I think there's a strong partnership that we have it with the United States here in this region is another advantage. I think that we have all the necessary needs in order to play a role in this reindustrialization on clean energy practically of the whole Europe. And we want to be there, and we want to be there with all the country, and we want to have a role in this.
Minister Popescu, is it working? Yes. Thank you so much. And as you have mentioned, diversifying supplies, diversifying partnerships, diversifying the technology portfolio, not to replace one dependency with another, as the State Secretary has mentioned. About transatlantic, green transatlantic marketplace, could you maybe share your reflection? How do you see the prospect of building up the transatlantic marketplace, regardless of the administration change? How can you evaluate the prospects going forward?
If I can evaluate, I already was asked, I think last week by media, how I think it will develop our energy programs after a possible change of administration in the United States. And I just say that we started with Republicans, we continue with Democrats, and we'll continue with everybody from United States, because as I know, the foreign policy of United States is not changed, and Romania is a very reliable partner of United States, and we want to work with new administration, whatever it will be.
Thank you so much. Sebastian, I don't know if you wanted to come in maybe and have any comment, but then I will come after your intervention. Go ahead.
What Mr. Popescu said was right. Research, development, and industrial technology for clean energy is the future in order to reduce the dependency of raw materials and other technologies, and make sure that Europe has a clean energy future. Actually, also we've been very involved in this matter. Monsson, together with Prime, who actually is a Romanian battery producer, developed very interesting technology for storage facilities. We're now commissioning the largest storage in Romania, 200 megawatts of storage, and we are deploying the technology and exporting the technology all over Europe, mainly Sweden and Finland. So for renewable energy technology actually and the storage, we've managed to have more than 97% of European components in our technology. The battery was commissioned in March, and now we're commissioning every 6 months around 100 megawatts. So I think there is a future, and Romania can have an important role both in research and development, but also deployment of such technology.
Thank you very much. And also a critical part of the energy independence, nearshoring the supply chain. Considering the time we have left, I would like to go the last bit of our panel, kind of a rapid-fire question to all the panelists. As we are looking at the scope and the sheer size of the energy transition, the public support is going to be critical no matter what direction the countries embark on it, and making sure that we have the societal buy-in from early on, reflecting on the practices, but also what Monsson is actually doing on the ground. Could you maybe share what are some of the key components that you see for strengthening the public engagement to ensure that we have societal buy-in for the energy transition?
Yeah, so I think that what worked and will work in the future is good communication between partners, both social partners, administration, and industrial partners. Information, communication, and education are the way to move forward for the energy transition. We are facing now a reshaping of the energy market. I think also the administration should be more active in changing legislation as technology comes, because what we've seen is that the administration is moving slow, the technology is moving fast. So I think well-adapted market rules should be in place. And what we're facing now, it's actually laws that should have happened 2, 3, 4 years ago are just now happening. So we don't want to be left behind. Yeah. So that's one of the most important things. Yeah. The administration to be more proactive in supporting the new technologies, being welcomed into the market, and also to make sure that the market is flexible enough and safe enough for the energy system, together with communication between the parties.
Thank you so much. Minister Popescu, your thoughts on public engagement?
Yes, it's very important to have the support of the local communities in these objectives that we have, or that we all have in European Union. So I think transparent communication and sharing information is crucial. I think regular updates are crucial. I think the involvement of the communities in all the projects and keeping them informed with the development of the project is also very important. Involvement of them in leading those projects also is important. I think overall communication and involving and discussing with the local communities are essential and crucial in having success in what we have planned to do.
State Secretary.
Well, there is not much more to add. I mean, everything has been said, but it's really, and I said it earlier, is that I truly believe that in order for this to be successful, we need to make sure that more and more people have their skin in the game, so that they can really touch the change that they are contributing to. Be it when they change their heat pump, when they change their roof, whatever. So that's first very important thing. Second, I think it's very important that we do monitor and report on the progress, to inform the society about the milestones, whether or not they have been reached, and also clearly communicate the reasons why perhaps the milestones were not reached yet, because then it happens that before we reach the ambition that we set until 2025, 2030, we already changed it, and people do not understand why, and then the skepticisms may occur. And then, of course, it's important for the general public, so starting from top politicians to the media to everyone, to use the platforms and to inform and to discuss and to communicate with the general public, so that they feel that they understand why so much money are invested perhaps in areas where they never reach the benefit of that. So they need to understand why is it important for all of us.
Well, thank you very much for your insightful comments and for your perseverance. And please join me in thanking our panel with a round of applause.